Hold on. Is this live?
I would love to see wind power become more prevalent, but in an effort to save a little bit of time, I would like to jump into solar because I know
Sure.
that's a
So
huge.
so our solar resource is not quite as grand as our wind resource, and the only reason for that is we're so far north as a state. So we have some months out of the year where we only have, you know, in December and early January, we have about 3.5 hours a day of good sun. So that cuts into the viability of a solar project, right? We do have one commercial utility scale solar project working in Wyoming now. It's the Sweetwater solar project. It's just outside of Green River. That project provides enough power for 12,000 homes. It generates $500,000 worth of tax revenue per year for Sweetwater County. Wow. And it has 9 permanent employees. So there is a place for, certainly a place for utility scale power in Wyoming. The other place that I think we is very underutilized is just residential scale, right? We see more and more as we drive through Cheyenne, even though Wyoming's not the friendliest state in the union in terms of providing homeowners with help to put in solar electric installations. We see more of them as we drive through town all the time. And there are some real advantages of that to the homeowner and to the grid, really. To the homeowner, we do have a net metering law in Wyoming. That law allows a homeowner to sell power back to the utility. They sell power back at the avoided cost rate, which is a much lower rate than we buy power at, right? But the utility's point is that wait a minute, we still had to have the coal-fired power plant because there are going to be times when the sun doesn't shine, and we still have to have the people that work at the coal-fired power plant and the transmission lines and all that. The only thing we're really saving is the coal, and so basically the avoided cost rate is the what they have to pay for coal. That's not the most favorable to the homeowner, but it's favorable enough to the utility that when that law was introduced in the state legislature, that Shine Light Fuel and Power at the time testified for the law. Actually, I helped write that law in 2002. So I take a little bit personally every year when the legislators we have now try to repeal it. It's and like I say, it's very favorable to the utility. When you look at it from a utility standpoint, and you look at some other states like Colorado, for example, where I think that the utility has to pay a much higher rate for the power that they buy back. There's no reason it's not a good deal for the utility. It is a good deal for the homeowner because you can easily put a big enough setup on your system that your monthly power bills are essentially zero. You still do pay the hookup fee, which is getting more and more expensive, unfortunately. but you're not paying for power. There's a couple of things about residential solar as we go forward that I think are really important, and one of them has to do with gas prices, gasoline prices. I just was reading yesterday that you know, the big manufacturers of electric cars can't keep up with the demand. They can't make electric cars fast enough. The American public wants them that bad. And so they're all Ford, Tesla, of course, and I believe GM is the other big player that's starting to try to make electric cars, and they just can't keep up. So we're all complaining about $5 gas, right? Well, if you have solar panels on the roof of your house and you plug your car in at night at your house, and you have, you essentially, you're insulated from inflation on fuel prices, which seems like a really great thing to me. So I hope we see a lot more of that going forward. The other thing to think about in terms of that power is we're talking about, especially in the winter, this, basically 20 hours a day when you're not making solar energy. And so almost everybody that manufactures the whole solar package at this point has some sort of a battery backup system. And these battery backup systems have gotten really sophisticated. And so like in the state of Massachusetts, for example, they are set up so that when the utility needs power, you're actually electronically connected, computer control connected to your battery bank, and they can take power from your battery bank instead of starting a topping plant to make up the power. When utilities need power, it's almost always on a hot summer afternoon when everybody's got their air conditioner on. That's even true in Massachusetts as well as in Wyoming. So so it's a good time for you, if you've got solar panels, to be selling some of the electricity out of your batteries. And because it's so expensive for utilities to start up these, what they call topping plants, they will pay a lot for that power. In Massachusetts, they pay enough for that power that it'll pay out your battery bank in about 5 years, according to what I understand. And then the interesting thing about the way this law is written in Massachusetts is that if there's a major winter storm coming, 3 days before the major winter storm, they cannot call on your batteries. And so your batteries are charged up before the storm gets there. You take a big power outage on the grid and you've got power to run your home while the blizzard passes through. So it just seems like a win-win for everybody, right? And battery storage, any kind of storage, we're going to talk about, if you'll indulge me, we'll talk about storage here in a minute.
Yeah, please.
But any kind of storage is good for the grid, right? Because the argument always is, well, the grid's going to become unstable because the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow. And now I would argue that anybody that says the wind doesn't always blow in Wyoming has not been in Wyoming very long. But there are times when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. So what are we going to do then? And so to stabilize the grid, we know that we're going to need a massive amount of energy storage across the United States as the grid becomes more and more renewable. If each individual homeowner has this distributed power system, where everybody's got solar panels on the roof, let's say, just for the sake of argument, since we're talking Wyoming, all across Wyoming, everybody's got battery backup. Well, the chances that, there's going to be a problem that affects all of Wyoming is really pretty small. So you've made your grid more resilient, which that's what we want, right? We don't want a situation like they had in Texas a couple of years ago, where a little cold snap wrecked everything basically, and the grid went down. There's a lot of interesting reasons that Texas grid is unstable, but the biggest reason is that Texas decided to pass a law long ago that you cannot import electricity into Texas and you can't export electricity out of Texas. So they are an island, and that of course makes them unstable, because if something happens in the state of Texas, nobody can help them. But as you get a bigger and bigger geographic area and you have this distributed system, of course, that makes it far more resilient. So I really think home solar, home batteries, very good for the consumer that put them on the roof, very good for the whole utility grid. It's just a good thing for everybody. And I guess the last thing I'll say about that is in the 2002 timeframe, I was doing solar and wind power installations, and we kept saying, man, if we could just get the cost of these solar panels down to less than $3 a watt, this will be viable. This will be a great thing. Well, I just looked on Amazon and you can buy a 100-watt panel for $89. So it's 89 cents a watt. Wow. If it's 89 cents a watt, this ought to be really viable, especially when everybody's paying what they're paying now for fossil fuel energy. It just seems like the economics of putting photovoltaics on your roof have probably never been better.